If we are on the Appalachian Trail between rainfalls during a period of wet weather, we might get to see pretty sights like this. But when we're sloshing along in the middle of a huge downpour, the views probably aren't going to be as inspiring. We can be tempted to think rain on the Appalachian Trail is a huge pain in the neck, and even if we don't feel that way, we still need to do what we can to stay as dry as possible under the circumstances. We're going to take an in-depth look at strategies for dealing with rain while hiking on the AT. We'll start off with warm weather rain and then say a little about cold weather. For the benefit of those living in dry climates, let's take a look at some examples of how bad it can get on the AT. In the upper left of this video is a heavy rainstorm seen from a distance. We can see enough to tell the ground is really getting pounded. Maybe you can understand when I tell you I haven't done any filming under a rain like that. But I did film this in a motel parking lot several hours after I ended a section hike on the AT, which was about 10 miles away. I have hiked in rain like this, and as you can see, it's really coming down. I shot this when that rain ended. In the upper left, you can see the hills just beyond which lie the AT. As you can imagine from the parking lot scene, I have found it quite difficult to stay 100% bone dry 100% of the time on the AT. My reaction to rain on the AT has varied in direct proportion to how bad the rain is. When I'm hiking in warm weather, I'm usually overheated and soaked with sweat. Many times I've seen a drizzle or light rain develop that doesn't last very long. And when that happens, I usually just keep walking as if nothing is going on. My thinking being I wasn't dry in the first place, and I will wait a little longer to see if heavier rain develops before I decide to put on any rain gear. While heavy rain gets my attention, one reason I have chosen to ignore drizzle or light rain is my hiking clothes. I assume these days everyone knows synthetic clothing is the top choice for something like AT hiking because synthetics will dry out much faster than cotton. Or to put it another way, I have seen synthetics dry out well when cotton would still be soaked. All my clothes are synthetic down to my underwear, socks, and shoes. Synthetic clothing also is a big help if we sweat like crazy in hot weather. Another factor is I do take steps to keep my backpack from getting soaked, but up to a certain point I don't worry if the pack gets damp. That's because most items in my pack are inside silicone-impregnated nylon stuff sacks. Sil nylon is so water-resistant it's almost waterproof. My clothes, my food, my cookware, and my sleeping bag all are in sil nylon sacks. These particular sacks are commercial models, while these sacks I made myself. As I said in another video, I learned to sew to make 2 sil nylon tarp tents, and I made these sacks from the leftover material. Before I made those sacks, I put my clothes and food inside plastic garbage bags, and even if my sleeping bag is in a sil nylon bag, I still carry both inside a garbage bag in the pack. Not once has any rain gotten my sleeping bag wet inside the pack. I also once used the trick of lining my pack with a heavy trash compactor bag with everything going in the pack being inside that bag. That worked well enough, but ultimately I decided that was something I really didn't need to continue doing. Some other items like paper items and water purification stuff I will carry in plastic Ziploc bags. As I said, heavy rain gets my attention, and sometimes it gets my attention really fast. Once I was walking on the AT and I started hearing a funny noise. It sounded like a stampede in the distance, and it began to get louder and louder. I couldn't see much of the sky and decided it could only be one thing. I jumped to a flat spot along the trail and pulled out my tarp tent, which I carried toward the top of the pack. I pegged down the 4 corners in record time and got inside. I was still raising it with the trekking pole when the rain hit, and it was an absolute deluge. I was happy to sit inside that tent for about 20 minutes until the rain died down. Let's talk about options for more routine rain. After trying about everything, I settled on a sil nylon poncho for my main rainwear. I did this mainly because I don't sweat much more than normal when I'm under a poncho, and I consider the coverage to be adequate. In this photo, you can see I tied cords to the 2 corners in the back of the poncho, and I pulled those cords up front and tied them at my waist. This helps cover the pack and prevents the poncho from flapping around too much in the wind. A couple of times I've spent all day hiking in a poncho this way. My pack stayed pretty dry and my shorts stayed pretty dry. During really bad rain, I didn't think I could hope for much better than that. I have two ponchos, each with its own sack with a draw cord. I often clip the draw cord to a small carabiner on a pack strap to have it handy for rapid deployment. Coated nylon ponchos are available, and I have one, but they are heavier than sil nylon, so I only use sil nylon on the AT. This smaller poncho, for example, weighs only 8 ounces. A poncho can be a pretty clumsy thing to get into if you've never used one before. I would recommend practicing getting into the thing if necessary. I always carry an umbrella, mainly for use around camp. For example, if I have to visit a privy at a shelter at night. I have walked under an umbrella, but not too much. I use a cheap small umbrella, and it isn't big enough to cover the pack at all. Also, I prefer to walk using both of my trekking poles, and with the umbrella, I could only use one. I also made a holster for the umbrella. Depending on the circumstances, I might have it handy for rapid deployment. I tried a rain suit on my first section hike on the AT, and after that I left it at home. It was an inexpensive model, and I sweated badly inside it. This shot is a friend during another AT hike, and he's wearing a rain suit even cheaper than the one I had. The green pack cover I made from sil nylon, and it more or less worked. And, as if the sweating wasn't bad enough, the blue rain suit made him look like a Smurf being attacked by a caterpillar. My daughter had a very decent rain jacket when we hiked on the AT. She was wearing shorts when we got rained on badly, and the jacket worked well. I experimented with garbage bags as pack covers on that trip, and the results were not very good. During that bad rain, water formed a pool on the top of that garbage bag pack cover, and then it ran down her back. Twice on the Appalachian Trail, I have stepped over a commercial pack cover that came off of someone's pack. If you use one, I would make sure that it's going to fit snugly and won't fall off. If you have to crawl under a fallen tree on the trail, for example, look behind you to make sure the pack cover didn't get pulled off. I think it makes sense to use a pack cover combined with a rain jacket, and since opting for the poncho, I stopped carrying a pack cover. When the rain stops and the sun finally comes out, that's the time to dry out all our stuff. If we don't, we might end up with some mildew problems. In another video, I told that I prefer a black pack, a black umbrella, and black socks because black dries pretty quickly in the sunlight. On a stop like this, I have found it usually takes about 30 minutes to dry the tent, pack, and poncho in the sunlight. Northbound AT thru hikers face a high probability of rain during cold weather during the earlier weeks of their hike. That increases the case for a rain suit, and there are better choices than the non-breathing Walmart specials used by my friend and I. At the least, I would use a rain suit made by Frog Togs. They have been used on the AT for years, and they aren't too expensive. They have a reputation for tearing if the user isn't careful, but that wouldn't stop me. I would consider it a temporary item that would not have to last for months, and if I had more money to spend, I would look on the REI website for something more durable. And even with a rain suit in cold weather, I would still carry a poncho with the idea of making an extra effort to stay dry in the cold. Yet another option for thru hikers in bad, wet, cold conditions is to check into a motel and spread everything out to dry. I've never done that on the AT, but I have done it during hunting trips. In another video, I told how wet weather has increased the risk of foot blisters for me, and in yet another video, I talked about considerations of rain as we select a tent or a tarp tent for our shelter. If you've missed those, please check my channel. And now we're done. I'd like to take a minute to thank everyone who has subscribed to my channel. The first video on this channel went public 3 months ago, and since then I have more than 600 subscribers. This is more than I would have hoped to have gotten in that amount of time. I'm very grateful for this response. If these videos have helped anyone in a small way, they have certainly served their purpose, and I have plenty of videos yet to come on the Appalachian Trail and a number of other videos planned on many other outdoor topics. I hope you'll find those of interest when they appear. And as always, thanks for watching.